Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest here today. We have Dr. Amy Michelle Wilcockson, and yes, she is a chiropractor. We went to school together way back in the day. When did you graduate chiropractic school?
Oh, that would have been December of 1999. It
Oh,
was a great
99.
New
Okay,
Year's
yeah, I
Eve.
was 99. Yeah, I think I graduated the same class. Yeah, I split a term and then I extended it out. I was going to graduate in the spring and then I went to, well, no,
Yep.
I was actually a summer graduation.
I split a term and ended up in your class too. So
Oh, is that what happened? Okay, okay, cool.
yeah, yeah.
All right, so I'm just gonna read kind of like your bio, your history. She has a very interesting health journey that I think a lot of people here will find very, very valuable. So I'm just gonna kind of read what you sent me here, and I'm just gonna refer to you as Dr. Amy. Is that cool?
Sure.
Okay. And then I think what we would really want to do is just kind of talk about your journey so people can relate. And I think you give a lot of people that have hope, especially, my clientele. I'm dealing with people that generally have been hurt by antibiotics and they're pretty much devastated. And I mean, you've had cancer diagnoses and a whole bunch of stuff. So, and you've really overcome a lot of these things with a variety of different things.
Yes, the
Yeah.
whole thing, the whole ball
Right.
of wax.
Yeah, so I'm just going to read it here. So you say in the beginning of my story started when you started with panic and anxiety and
hmm
depression. And what
hmm
year would you say that was where you had panic, anxiety, and depression problems?
Well, frankly, all my life that I can remember, and sleeping disorder as well, chronic anxiety, chronic insomnia, panic, and nighttime panic, and nighttime terror too. So, I mean, I think that started when I was really young.
Hmm.
Dysfunctional relationships at home and in youth, you know what I mean, developmentally dysfunctional.
Yeah.
But as I aged and got into chiropractic school, the stress got really high. So it got exponentially worse.
Okay. So were you
Eh,
waking up a few times a night? Would you wake up with night sweats? I mean, you just wake up and you weren't like really
yeah,
rested. What did that look like?
waking up and being in a panic, sweating, panic attack. It's like waking up to a panic attack in the middle of the
Right.
night.
Right.
So, yeah, so I was always afraid to go to sleep
Oh,
because
wow.
I
Okay.
knew that there was going to be some sort of panic attack that would happen most nights. So it was scary to go to sleep. And when I did sleep well, it was really not well. I think it was just exhaustion.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
So how many nights, how many days a week would you have these? Like, how often would this occur?
Oh, probably 5 out of 7 nights.
Wow, holy smokers! For how many years?
I don't remember when I was a kid, but I do remember I had chronic bladder infections as a child. I was on
Mm.
antibiotics from the get-go
Oh,
and chronic bladder infections and
wow.
chronic antibiotics. So I started off as a kid with a diet of sugar and in the 70s with a processed package, TV dinners, mac and cheese, all kinds of every cereal known to man. So it was a very poor diet. As a child and the chronic bladder infections and then antibiotics galore. So I started off with not a very, with
Mm.
a damaged
Yeah.
microbiome essentially in life.
How many rounds
Yeah.
of antibiotics would you say you had?
Oh, countless,
Like 10, 20, 30, 50,
countless.
60?
Over my lifetime?
Yeah, over your
Oh,
lifetime.
well, yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I mean, it's multiple times a year when I was a kid having chronic bladder infections. They were treating it with antibiotics as a first line of defense. Then I ended up with, so I don't know. I mean, literally dozens and dozens of
Dozens.
times.
Okay.
I mean, uh, probably by the time I got out of high school. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even know. I wouldn't even be able to count.
Okay. Lots. Okay. Okay. So then I'm just going to read your bio here. So then you suffered with sugarism. Is that how you pronounce it? Sugaraholism?
Sugaroholism, yeah.
Sugaraholism.
I
Okay.
call it sugaroholism because sugar is a drug.
Yeah.
Really, it is worse than narcotics in terms of pleasure centers in the brain on MRI. It stimulates the brain much harder than a narcotic does. So I grew up eating sugar uh, as breakfast, right? And then, but what I learned was to abuse sugar for stress. So part of the self-soothing behavior that I learned as a child was to, when I woke up in a panic, or when I was a younger person, even into my teenage years and young in my 20s, my drug of choice would be sugar. So
Mm.
as a child, I would go to the fridge in the middle of the night for my panic attack, and I would have the pint of ice cream
Uh,
and the sugar, and the cereal that goes with it. That was the
Frosted Flakes, baby.
emotional, yeah, that was the emotional, hit, right? That
Yeah.
was the dopamine hit that I
Yeah,
needed
for
to
sure.
feel better and go back to sleep, just like in drugs or alcohol, right? As a
Yeah.
kid, I had access to all this,
Yeah.
as a drug. So
Yeah.
that's where I learned why I call it sugaraholism, because it's a real addiction, and most Americans have it these days, quite frankly. So I really just call it for what it is. It's an addiction.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's one of the most wicked addictions to get over. And even now as an adult, I still gravitate back to that thinking of, oh, if I just could get some sugar, I could feel better,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, mind's a powerful thing. It's definitely, these thoughts in your mind that perseverate that are always
Yep.
there. You got to kind of always handle that. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's always something to be aware of, and knowing that, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm sort of on the 15 in terms of susceptibility
Yeah,
to highly
I hear you.
processed sugars and
Yeah.
things
So,
like that.
yeah, let me just go over your whole health history here and then we can dive in. So, then you're also diagnosed with IBS.
Hmm.
There's a lot of thens, right? Then food tolerance, then autoimmune disease, then you had weight gain, then you had a liver tumor
Yes, yes.
diagnosis. Okay.
Yeah, it really just became a spiral of
One
problems
thing after the
throughout my
other.
lifetime, and of course, I really, the root cause of it all was mental emotional, right? The
Yeah.
anxiety, the dysfunctional relationships, that what I call codependency, and I think most people, most women for sure, suffer from codependency, chronic people pleasing, growing up being a people pleaser, taking care of everyone else before yourself, and so then what happens is really you abandon yourself, and you don't, develop the proper identity. So that codependency is really at the root cause of a lot of emotional mismanagement. And I think emotional mismanagement then leads to the chronic fight or flight. Chronic fight or flight syndrome leads to the chronic cortisols and all the hormonal dysfunction, right? So I think that is the cascade after decades that causes all those symptoms. Quite frankly, I think emotional mismanagement and lack of that, proper treatment causes a lot of physical sicknesses.
Yeah,
Now
for sure.
retrospect, having learned that, I also developed a lot of dental issues when I
Mm.
was young. Go
Oh,
figure, because I ate a bunch of sugar, so I had all kinds of cavities. Ended up as a
periphery.
young adult with 5 root canals and necrosis in my jaw. So I had rotten early in my 20s and 30s, early 20s, and even 20s. I had already um, uh, necrosis, or dying bone tissue from
Wow.
old root
Okay.
canals in my,
And
yeah,
then you also had thyroid cancer
yeah,
diagnosis. Okay, so
yeah.
a lot of stuff here. So I'm thinking the best way to maybe to just kind of go over your history so people can relate is um so you had all these different things occurring in your body. So what were like for example, maybe go over your like surgery. Like you had some surgeries here, so kind of tell people like what happened, what they found, and what you went through.
So as I went throughout life, the chronic anxiety and all those things turned into ultimately IBS and intolerant food intolerances, right? And I developed that lactose intolerance, the gluten intolerance, all the things that led to chronic bowel issues that were undiagnosable. really, I didn't have any treatment other than I had to just really watch what I ate. I think a lot of people are going through that right now. They
Yeah.
have all kinds of,
GI
colitis and irritable
issues.
bowel and all these intolerances and GI things, right? So I think it all stemmed from, the emotional stuff as well. And then of course we have the environment and the foods and the all the things that we do in the lifetime of antibiotics, which leads to a horrible microbiome. So that all developed. Then as a result, I think we get leaky gut. Leaky gut then allows us to get the autoimmune diseases,
Yeah.
the autoimmune
Hmm.
diseases, right? And all the food intolerances. And so I ended up with Hashimoto's, which was really the thyroid attacking itself, right? The Hashimoto's, a lot
Hmm.
of women have that issue,
Yeah.
hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism. That developed over time. And then I started treating that. Eventually, it ended up in thyroid cancer. So that was, it took that took a while. That was in my 40s when I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Uh, and then um, and then along the way, I developed or undiscovered. I had a hemangioma, which is a tumor in my liver that grew from we discovered it at about 7 pounds, and it grew over time to be about 10 pounds.
I
And
mean,
it was
10
a
pounds, a
benign
10
tumor.
pound tumor on your liver. I mean, that's massive.
Yep, 10
10
pound tumor.
pounds.
It was massive. Yep. It was massive, and it was to the point where I was actually buying maternity swimsuits because I was embarrassed, right? I could tell, right? People could tell. It was just weird, right? And it
I mean, could you feel
eventually
the
had to
like
come
the
out.
growth there? I mean, did you? I mean,
Yes.
your stomach was getting bigger and bigger. Then you went in and they did like a MRI scan, and they're like, "Amy, you got
Mhm.
a tumor here."
It was
Like,
found Yeah, it was found accidentally. Thought I had a gallbladder problem, and they found it accidentally on an ultrasound, and then went down that road of it was benign, so I didn't have to remove it right away. It was a humongous surgery, stem to stern. They had to fillet me open and take the whole thing out at once. At one time, cauterize all around it. It was a big bloody tumor. It's essentially a big bloody tumor, and that was the picture.
yeah, I'm going to show
That
people
was
this
right.
picture right here. So
Yeah,
this
that
is
was the
when
first month.
this is when you were in the hospital,
Yeah.
getting the
Yep.
tumor removed, right?
Right, correct. That was 2020, first month of lockdown. And I was in there, yeah, on during the first month of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell
But
you look very, very sick.
yeah, it was a really bad time. 5 years prior to that, I'd had my thyroid removed. I actually had to go down the road of having the thyroid removed. I tried to treat it for 3 or 4 years naturally. As chiropractors, we try to do all the
Yeah.
things, right?
Mhm.
Remove the amalgams, go get the alternative treatments, do all the gut
Yep.
protocols, tried to do all the alternative things, but it was really too little too late at that point. So I did have to have the whole thing removed, unfortunately. And then that was 5 years prior. And then eventually I did have the liver tumor done, and it was a life altering, life threatening, and consequently life altering surgery, because not knowing if you're going to come out of it or not
Yeah.
really changes your life.
Yeah.
And when you have that sort of a situation where you literally have a life or death decision to make,
Yeah,
and you're
for
writing
sure.
your will, and you're only 50 years
Yeah.
old, and you're not even 50 years old, and you're writing a will, right?
Yeah, that's
You're
tough.
I mean, it was a very scary experience. And retrospect, I literally had to, you know you go through the dark. There's always the dark before the light, right?
Yep.
And
Mhm.
that was definitely part of the huge dark. And I had started probably 5, 10 years prior. I gave up everything I knew. I died to myself, gave up the chiropractic practice that I loved, that was in
So
my
just give
heart, that
people
was my
like
beloved.
a timeline so they can see like where this is all coming in.
Yeah, 15 years ago, I decided I had the liver tumor, I had the thyroid cancer, I had the big practice and the chiropractic practice in Minnesota.
Yeah, you were seeing
I was
600
licensed.
people a week. You told me that was in 2010, like 15 years. So it's 2025. So we're talking 2010. So
Yeah,
just so people realize, Dr. Amy had one of the biggest practices, and you were probably the top five biggest practices, I think, in Minnesota. Jason
yeah,
Gerard and I don't know who else, but top five for sure for large practices.
yeah. Yeah, it was beloved to me, and I worked, you blood, sweat, and tears for it,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And you live it, you breathe it, you take care of everyone, but I was just sacrificing my own life trying to save the world essentially because I wasn't taking care of myself the way I needed to be, and my stress, I didn't have the emotional resiliency and the skill sets to handle the stress that came along with that success. Do you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
I think
totally.
that happens with a lot of people is they have the success, but it looks great on the outside, but it's all kinds of chaos on the inside. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Totally. Yeah.
And yeah, and then it just it created this cascade of, just health decline for me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. I was under constant stress of what if I fail, the whole
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And so yeah, so it was over time, but 15 years ago, then I sold my 10 years ago. Well, God, I lose track. I sold my business and I just said I can't kill myself trying to save the world. So I
Yeah.
literally sold my business, left
Your
everything I
chiropractic
had.
practice now, when you say your business, right?
Yeah, my
Yep.
chiropractic practice,
Yep.
and I left everything I had already previously worked for, blood, sweat, and tears. And I was dying. I had to make a choice. I had to sacrifice things I loved and people I loved, the place I loved. I loved Minnesota. I loved everything about it, but I had to sacrifice that to save my own life. And I know that not everyone gets in this situation, but you don't want to be in that situation. And if I can encourage anyone on the other side of this is to not wait until you have these moments, right, where you have these life or death situations,
Yep.
because it's never the better road. It's never the easier road,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I had to give it all up to come home and try to take care of myself and get it back together again. So I did
S-
eventually have the surgery, the thyroid first and then the liver. But when you're right in your own will and
Yeah.
you know that,
Totally.
I had to let it all go. I had to start fresh and, say, I'm putting myself first. And if I don't take care of myself, I don't have any business taking care of anyone
Yeah.
else.
I mean, there's one thing, like when people don't have their health, there's only one thing that they want back is their health. That's the only thing they want. Like
Yep.
if you're sick and you don't have health, the only thing that you want is your health back. That's it. Nothing else. Like money doesn't matter. Only thing is the restoration of your health when you're sick. So,
Nope. That's,
so just kind of this timeline then. So it's 2025. You sold your practice in 2010, and then if I'm understanding this correctly, so you sold your practice in 2010, and then you had the thyroid surgery in like
yeah.
2015, where you had
Yeah.
thyroid cancer. Was that be right? 2015, and then five
Yeah.
years
Yeah. About five
later,
years
you
back.
had this
Hmm.
liver surgery.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right. And now with your thyroid, they removed the whole thing. Are you taking thyroid like levothyroxine? Are you on thyroid hormone then right now?
Yep,
Okay.
forever. It's
Yep. Forever.
goner. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
it's goner. I do have, I'm taking supplements and have done all the gut healing protocols and, thyroid supplements and things. I'm doing as much natural thyroid support as I can.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I will have to be on prescriptions for life now because
Yeah, my
it's
my
all
wife,
gone.
she has Hashimoto's too, so she's on thyroid replacement as well. So we've
Hmm.
managed the autoimmune disease, and now because that condition was there, I mean the autoimmune disease eats away at the thyroid, right? So your thyroid doesn't produce as much hormone, so you have to kind of supplement.
Correct. Correct.
Um, so I guess for the audience, what would you say? This is where your expertise comes in. And I think the most valuable thing is so you went from you were killing it, 600 patients a week, one of the biggest practices in Minnesota. You had irritable bowel syndrome. You had to sell your practice. You had the thyroid cancer, and then you had a 10-pound liver tumor, which I mean is scary. And then you're saying you have a big scar like on your stomach area from that
Yeah, it was yeah, from
sternum
the
to
stern
stomach.
down to the belly button and all the way over to the side. And
Okay, so
so
it's like a
it's
it's like
it's a
an L kind of shape.
yeah, it's like an L shape. It's an L shape and it goes from top to belly button, down to belly button,
Yep,
all the way over to the side.
this
So
side.
it
Okay,
was yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
that's a lot of surgery. So you're here today in 2025. right? So you've overcome a lot of obstacles and health issues. So what's been the game changer for you? Obviously, you've had thyroid cancer, liver cancer, and you're still here today, right? So that's a miracle by God that you're here. What would you
Yep,
say when you talk to people? I think a lot of the people listening are going to really relate to this. I actually believe you're actually your your root cause problems were probably because you're putting on all those antibiotics and sugar, and that was setting you up for poor health and leaky gut. You
totally,
had leaky gut probably since you've been were 10 years old, and that causes, like you say,
totally.
autoimmune disease. And then, so really, like there was no root cause therapy to get to the root cause of the problem back when you were younger, like when you were
No.
teenager, and that just expanded now. So now you're here. So what's been like the gems? If you had to drop like the gems, like we have 10 minutes here to talk about what Dr. Amy's gems are that saved your life. And then if people want to get a hold of you too, we're going to give people that information as well.
Um, the gems that saved my life, I got myself, I stopped trying to doctor myself.
Yeah.
Number one.
And what
You
does
and I,
that look like? What does
you,
not doctoring the doctor look like?
you and I know a lot, Hugh. We're know-it-alls.
Yeah.
Okay. I had to admit to myself that it was a know-it-all, not doing it all. Obviously, if I could do it, I would have done it. Even
Right.
though I knew how to do it, I wasn't doing the thing. Like I wasn't doing the thing to manage my stress, to eat right, to exercise right, to do the basics that I knew to do. I know everyone knows what to do to be healthy, right?
Yeah, I'd say
But
for the
there's
most
this
part, for
huge
sure.
gap. Yeah, there's this huge gap between knowing you should move well, eat well, and think well, and knowing how to do it, and then being able to implement it, do
Right.
it, right? Or execute it, right? Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
Yep. Totally.
And so I had to admit to myself, I had to become a recovering know-it-all and say, I need help because obviously I know exactly what to do. I could write the book. I have the degrees on the wall hanging there, right?
Right. Yeah.
But
The sheepskin.
yeah, I can't, obviously I'm not doing it. So I got my own, I just let go of my ego and I let go of my drive to do it myself and do it again another, time and fail again by myself. And I got some coaches. I got some guides and some mentors and some coaches that told me what to do. And I just said, okay, I'm just tell me what to do. Obviously, I can't do this. I'm a recovering know-it-all.
Right.
And so that was number one. I think that's the number one gem is that I actually had to stop trying to do it myself because it wasn't working. And so I
And
really
when did you have this realization? What year was this? Like,
um it was probably when I 10 years ago. 10 years
okay.
ago and
So
I
when you had the
got
thyroid cancer, that's when this whole thing, like, you're like, I need
yeah,
some
right.
coaching. I
Yeah,
need
right
some help.
after my thyroid surgery, I said, okay, now I got to get it together, right? I sold my business in Minnesota, moved home, had the thyroid out. That happened very, very quickly in order. And I said, okay, I got the thyroid out. Now I know I got this liver looming that I got to do at some point, but I have to get it together because seriously, I knew the answer was in the lifestyle. I was always, and we have to eat well, we have to move well, and we have to think well, right? It's pretty
Hmm.
basic.
Yeah.
Why can't I do that? And I was still a sugaraholic, right? I was still not managing my stress properly. I was still, right? I was really emotional, still emotional, a mess. And so I got some coaches. I was in, I got some coaches. I had a therapist. I had lifestyle coaches, and within that, within that period of time, I discovered a neurosomatic emotional freedom technique healing. So, along with eat well, move well, right? All those things, think well. I learned that we have brain traumas. We have traumas in our nervous system that have been there for a long time that cause those emotional um, hamster wheels.
Yeah.
So I started working on the neurosomatic retraining of the hamster wheel thoughts, the
Hmm.
unhealthy thinking part. So So I had kind of a battery of health coaches and guides along the way, and I really leaned into them, and I just committed myself to healing myself from the inside out and being led by and you know, other and guided by these other people. And it really saved my life. And now retrospect, I am a completely different person, inside out, above, down, and inside out, as we
Hmm.
say. I mean, emotionally, mentally, physically, you know, even then now changed my external look as well, you know, from the inside out. It's very much it's I've become a completely different person. And my goal is to help all the people that are stuck and struggling and suffering silently, and all the and people that are just, you know, dying of depression and discouragement and indecision. And we're also scattered, and we're also fatigued and exhausted and
Yeah.
fearful, and we're so afraid of failing again. We don't want to fail again. And it's I'm just really want to be a beacon of light for all those people who are sick to death of being sick to death.
Right. Totally.
And be a guide for someone else now, you know,
Yep.
let my darkness be the light for someone else, right? And let them know that there's hope, that there is healing that can happen. There is health. You can restore your health, and you can heal. You can be happy again. You can actually come home to yourself, is what I like to say, because you're still in there. We're just all messed up. So but we need to
Right.
admit that we need more help. And if we were doing it, we would have, if we could do it, we would have done it. And if
Yeah.
we're not doing it, we need to get some different help. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That makes totally sense. So if someone's listening here, what would you say, like maybe the two most impactful things that you've done, like an application? Like I did A and I did B, and these two things were instrumental in my recovery, whether it was like changing your diet. I know we talked about that you had some hypoglycemia problems. What would you say,
Yeah.
what are some things that someone could like take away from this interview and actually apply to their life, like after they listen to you?
Hmm. A, B, and C, and I don't know really, honestly, what what order to put them in. I mean,
Yeah.
because they all go together, right? But A,
Mhm.
B, and C. Eat well, right? Get rid of all of the eat food by God, right? Not food by man, as much
Yeah.
as possible. Okay. Move well. Get move, right? Walk, stand, you know, doesn't have to be an exercise class, doesn't have to be CrossFit, right? Doesn't have you don't have to go to a gym, but move it, right? And then and that's pretty basic, right? But it's
That's
really
basic
hard.
101.
It's 101, but people aren't doing it, right? And I wasn't doing it. And the hydration goes with the nutrition too, by the way, because so hydration, nutrition,
Yep.
right? Move it or lose it. These are basic things.
Basic. Yep.
But last but not least, and I think the most complicated thing and the most pivotal thing for me is address what goes on in here. The thinking part is the hardest part, but the most important part that I think is the glue that holds it all together.
Mhm.
Because we have stuck thinking patterns, and we have stuck thinking patterns, and we have stuck neurological patterns. We have we respond all the time and react. We react to things instead of respond. So when we are stressed out, we have these instant reactions that are pre-programmed.
Yep.
So healthy thinking is very difficult to do, unless you actually learn to do it. So I think that's almost the most important part, because if we don't learn how to rewrite some of those automatic thoughts and responses, we're going to continue to do things that our our emotions drive our thoughts drive our behavior. So we're still going to not be able to eat well and move well if we don't address what we're emotional issues driving the thoughts that drive the behavior, which cause you not to be able to eat well and move well. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So I
Mhm.
think people really need to go to the mental gym. That's my number one gym. The mental gym is the most important thing, because it makes all the pieces come together. And for me, it was the game changer. It was the
Okay.
thing that never got addressed from the very beginning. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And if people are out there and they're like, "And man, I want Dr. Amy to help." Like you have you're helping people through coaching programs.
Yeah.
And what would be the best way for people if they listen to this podcast and are like, man, I want to get a hold of her? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
The best way is just you could go to my link tree on my Facebook page, and there
Right here,
is
right?
yep, right
So
there,
here,
and there
so
is
they can your Facebook page is open here, right? So if
yep,
they just go to Facebook page and they type in Amy Michelle
yep,
Wilcockson, and then
yep,
down here, this is going to be like your link tree. So if they click this button right here, let me actually just click this. I'll click
yeah,
it, and then
yes.
this right here is your link tree.
Yeah, multiple ways to get a hold of me. I'm going to be adding a link to a thinking assessment that is free to everyone. And when I talk about, eat well, move well, think well is the hardest part. So I've got a free thinking assessment and evaluation that actually quantifies, objectifies, and then identifies your stuck habits of thinking and those thought patterns that keep you stuck doing things over and over again you shouldn't do. So that is going to be an additional piece that I have newly that has been a game changer. So that will be a link for people to go ahead and take the evaluation. You don't have to talk to me, just take the evaluation, see what your scores
Just take
are.
the online quiz, man.
Yeah, it takes 15 minutes. You get an evaluation. I get objective numbers and objective scores for stuck habits of thinking. And then it gives you the identification of 18 different areas of thoughts, patterns that you might be stuck in. And it's free. It's Nobel Prize winning work. I didn't create it, but Dave Blanchard, he took over Augmendino's work and he developed it. And it's Nobel Prize winning and it's phenomenal. I think it's a great place to start to look at and see, okay, what is it in my head that's keeping me stuck? Why can't I
Mhm.
do what I know I should do? I
Yeah,
mean, that is the biggest bane of everyone's existence. Like, I can't tell you how many times a day I hear, I know what I should do, I'm just not doing it. Everybody says that.
right. And
There's not one person.
you're saying that's going to be you're going to have that here in your link tree here. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, I'll put
Okay.
that as a button on my link tree. Yeah, I haven't gotten it yet. I have a scanner and it's been posted on my Facebook page. It's been
It's on your
posted
Facebook
and
page.
there's
I
a
mean, we can go to that and
uh-huh.
see. Is it?
Yeah,
It's
there's
down
been
here
it was
somewhere or
couple
where?
let's see, go down. If you let's see, it was a couple days ago. Keep going down. Not that one. One more, I think. One more. There's lives there. It was posted just recently. Oh, that one. No. Uh huh.
Let me just move a little bit faster here.
The scanner is there, should be there.
Hmm. Oh
There it
well.
is. Walls of
Oh,
resistance. That right there. Walls of
the
resistance right
okay.
there.
So right here.
Yep.
So the date here is going to be the February
February
7th.
7th. Mm-hmm.
Um,
And that
and is
scan
there a
code,
clickable
and
link
then there's
here?
yep, there's a scan code, and then there'll be a clickable link in there
Oh, so you
as
have to scan.
well.
You have to scan this thing here. Is that right?
Yep, you can scan that, and then there should be there's an address right there how to take it. Also, you can just kind of put it
Oh,
in
right
your
here. The
browser.
assessment
Yep,
habit
Habit Finder Health.
health.
Yep,
Okay,
that
cool.
one right there.
So let me just,
Yep,
so again, so this is February 7th, right?
yep,
2025. This post, you can scan this or you
yep.
can copy
Go
and
to
paste
that
that
site.
link, right?
Yep, yep. And that's free. Again, no, you don't have to talk to me and I won't get an email or anything like that. So you'll just well, that's not true. I'll actually get an email that you took the test,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that you talk. So, but it's really, really powerful stuff because it gives us, thinking is hard to quantify. Right? You go to a therapist, you just talk about stuff and you don't get anywhere, right? But this gives you objective, right? Objective scores, quantifies the level of on a scale of 1 to 100, how healthy or unhealthy the thinking pattern is, and then it gives you a name, identification or a name to what the thought patterns are, so you can start to tackle them. For instance, being hesitant, being obligated, being uncoachable, being there's stuff around self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of there's 18 different parameters of thinking and being scattered, being frantic, being doing obligatory. There's all kinds of stuff. It's really great.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
really
any last
great.
words that you want to part us with here?
Um, you know, I I don't I just want to say, Hugh, you and I get into the healing profession because we have a passion for serving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that my journey has been like the darkness to the light has been really my gift. And most people who've had cancer will say that, right?
Yep.
It's been, it was my gift because it woke me up, right?
Yep. Right. Mm-hmm.
And I think that was for me to be true as well. I think that simple foundational truth that your life is a gift, but your health is earned, and your health is also a gift back to the one that gave it. I believe in, I function from love your neighbor as yourself. That means you got to love your neighbor first. Really basic truths, like do unto others as you would have done unto you. I would love to give people, right, what I've gotten in return. And then giving is always better than getting, right? Those golden rules, I feel like I get to live those now. I get to provide health, help, and hope and happiness for people and give what I've been given. And I got my joy back. I got my
Cool.
life back and I got myself back. I feel like I've come home to myself and I've discovered myself even maybe for the first time.
Mm.
So, and I'm 54 years old.
Right.
So
Right.
don't give up and don't give in.
It's never too late.
It's never too late.
All right. Sounds good.
Nope.
Thanks for the interview and take care.
Yeah. Thank you, Hugh.
You're
Take
welcome.
care.
Bye bye. Okay. So I ended the recording. Are you